Hi, I'm Thomas Lamb. I'm CEO of Myriad Uranium Corp. We have uranium projects in Wyoming and New Mexico. The Wyoming project is called Copper Mountain. It's got big historical resources and exciting upside, district scale potential. And the New Mexico project has high grades near surface, also very interesting.
Tom, good to see you, sir. Right, just raised some money. Why?
More money is always helpful. Of course, we have good uses for it, but we also had a few strategic investors that we wanted to add to the cap table. Very interesting. Look forward to, well, we'll see to what extent we can reveal in the future, but that's why we did it. We had a fair amount of money in the bank already, but this will give us flexibility too.
Okay, so okay, you got some strategic investors on board, and hopefully you can tell us who they are because I suspect that'll be important. But what are you going to be doing with the capital that you've got, this money and the money you had in the bank?
Yeah, we could have waited a few more months to raise. So we raised now because we wanted to get these folks in, and in fact, management participated and that sort of thing. The uses of the capital, we have geophysics to do in New Mexico. We'll be doing that in the next couple months. We have some surface work at Copper Mountain in Wyoming. It's not that expensive, but still costs. And very interesting, we have about 1,500 additional samples that we've sent from our late 2024 drill campaign. We've sent about 1,500, or we're sending 1,500 samples to the lab for chemical assay. This is because we have discovered something that is really interesting in relation to Copper Mountain. And that is that the gamma probe that was used in the 1970s, and then the gamma probe which we used in October, November 2024, does not pick up all the uranium at Copper Mountain. So a lot of your viewers who are already familiar with us will recall that Copper Mountain was going to be a large-scale conventional uranium mine. This was Union Pacific Railway in partnership with California Edison in the 1970s. They were they drilled 2,000 boreholes, and they were going to build a large-scale conventional mine to fuel the Edison reactors that were going to be built in the 1980s in California. Well, all that drilling, they probed those holes, those 2,000 holes. They did a little bit of chemical assay, but not much. They also used fluorometric methods to try to figure out how much uranium is contained, but principally they used gamma probe. They picked up quite a bit of uranium. They did their resource estimates and their mine planning using the estimates revealed by the gamma probe, the uranium mineralization revealed by the gamma probe. But it turns out that when you assay the rock, there's a lot of additional uranium, and that's because of disequilibrium, which I can explain. This is very exciting. So again, the point here, this was already going to be a large-scale conventional uranium mine in the late 1970s. That was the plan. And now it's even more exciting. Our chemical assays have revealed a lot more uranium, and we are sending a lot of additional samples to the lab. That's going to cost us some money. So I look forward to expanding on that. Yeah.
Okay, so like you took in, I think the front page of your PowerPoint about 100 million pound potential, right?
Yep.
That's a lot. What's the difference? What difference does it mean in percentage terms? The difference between the gamma probe and these kind of chemical assays that you're now using, or whatever assay type that you're using at the moment? Is it an increase of 50%? 25%, 10%?
Okay. Our project at Copper Mountain has 7 deposits that were identified by Union Pacific. 6 of them were going to be the part of the initial mine plan that Union Pacific had. And then there was over 12, 13, 14 prospects in the periphery around the central core area at Copper Mountain. Those all had several boreholes, say 3 to 20 boreholes each prospect. The 6 deposits that were going to be part of the mine plan saw extensive drilling and, again, gamma probing. And what they picked up was mineralization that was not necessarily continuous because of the nature. It's fractured granite, basement rock. And so they, as far as we can tell, and based on the data we have, these are cross sections, drill data that we have. We don't have all the drill data for all the drilling. There were gaps in between the intercepts of uranium mineralization that they plotted, and they did their estimates, the resource estimates, and then also estimates of potential. This is if they assumed if they continued doing more drilling and et cetera, that where they could get to based on that. With the chemical assays, we probed in October, November 2024, and we got just as good or better results than they had in the 1970s. We surpassed those results. We knew that they were conservative back then, and we're very happy to surpass those results. So exciting in itself. When we did the chemical assays, what we found is that where the grade was 1,000 ppm or higher, that's 0.1% of these probed intervals, we got a 60% boost in grade. So 1,000 ppm on average became 1,600 ppm and up. And sometimes a lot higher. Then some of the areas, because what we did is we assayed the edges of the intervals also. This is several months ago. And those are areas where, the probe, saw on the curve, these things are graphed. The amount of equivalent uranium, or based on the gamma probe, dropped to either near zero or zero. Actually, we found that the assays picked up quite a bit of uranium in those spots. So we assay, and that extends the interval. So the intervals are longer, and they're more uraniferous. They have more uranium. And the more uranium that the probe picked up, the bigger the boost from assay. But still, lots of spots that we thought didn't have any uranium at all, or very little uranium, actually got a boost too. So we're sending 1,500 samples that we think are likely to have additional uranium. And these are from sometimes blank sections based on the probe, or extending the edges. So we're optimistic. Obviously, we can't confirm, until we get the results back, we can't say definitively, but we're optimistic we're going to be able to extend intervals and increase the grades across more of these intervals. What that means is that things could be significantly better. We already thought things were better than they estimated in the 1970s based on our drilling, but now we think they could be significantly better than that.
Okay.
How's that? Does that make sense?
It can make sense. I think I understand what chemical assays are, but there's a phrase you used earlier, because it's great that disequilibrium is what does it mean? What does it do for you?
So this is a very important concept. I want to note that I am not a geologist, and that if I don't quite explain it perfectly, that everybody will forgive me. But I have learned a lot about it. What happens with uranium deposits is uranium gets picked up, for example, by water, and then it gets transported, and then the uranium drops out when it hits, for example, decaying plant matter or other things.
Right.
It can get picked up again and transported again. But if it's been sitting somewhere for a while, it decays into its daughter products through a known process that takes a known amount of time, and the ratios of the daughter products are understood. So actually, and those daughter products emit neutrons and other radiation. And so what happens with a gamma probe is you drill these holes at a uranium project or a prospect, and the gamma probe picks up neutron emission, and based on make a long story short, the experts estimate uranium grade based on the neutron emission that they pick up, but it's not that accurate if the uranium, for example, is newly arrived in the area. It hasn't had time to decay in its daughter products, which in some of the daughter products release a lot of neutrons, and then so it it can get the estimate of equivalent uranium grade wrong, either wrong in both directions. Either give you a grade that's too high or too low. And then the only way to 100% confirm the grade is to a chemical assay. Now, in fact, there are a few other ways you can estimate grade, but so in a nutshell, that's disequilibrium. It's when the uranium is either newly arrived or it's been there a long time and it's done a huge amount of decay. And then sometimes either the uranium gets transported away, leaving the daughter products, which emit neutrons, but there's no uranium there, or just the daughter products get picked up and transported away, but the uranium's left there, in which case you have less neutron emission, but a lot of uranium. So the probe really is off. It can favor you.
Right.
In our case, it can go both ways. In our case at Copper Mountain, it appears to favor us in a big way. That's very exciting because they got the disequilibrium wrong in the 1970s. And they were very conservative. They were a little bit aware that they had. I can get into that. That's pretty interesting what happened back in the 1970s.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting in terms of mineralogical disequilibrium and isotopic disequilibrium. We will put a link in the article for people to kind of go and have a look at it. It is kind of fascinating, and it's also very exciting and encouraging for you that you may be able to kind of pick up additional uranium in the core. Brilliant.
One of our advisors,
that's super exciting.
Key advisor Jim Davis, who was the general manager of Union's exploration in the 1970s, told us a few years ago, we were very conservative. You may, and I hope that you do much better than we did. And this project, already exciting project, could be much better. And here we are, and we're psyched about it.
And that's what he meant. So that's possibly what he meant.
Well, okay, exactly. So they used some fluorometric methods back then, and they saw that the grades were much higher, but they disregarded the results from those fluorometric methods to determine grade. So they had a hint.
Yeah. So just on that, then, knowing that, how do you allocate resources there? Because that feels like a really, really quick win. And I kind of refer you back to the big headline on the front of your PowerPoint, which talks about £100 million potential. Do you think that is what the market has reacted to in the past, or will continue to react to? Is that as you build up the size here, because obviously you're saying you're bringing a kind of increased grade component to it as well, but ultimately it's the pounds on the ground kind of play that you're bringing to the table. So how do you deliver against that?
We think that the big scale is going to be very attractive to people. It's going to cost money to drill out 100 million pounds, quite a bit. If we were going to get it up to 43-101 standard inferred, but even in higher categories, of course, it's going to cost a lot. So, but what we have in our favor is this is 2,000 boreholes, really high quality work in the 1970s. So I think everybody can feel pretty confident that the pounds are there. So it may be that we don't rush headlong and raise tons of money and drill out 100 million pounds, but what we can show people, and we're not alone out there with big historical, or maybe we're one of the few companies with big historical numbers. There are a fair number of companies with small deposits with historical numbers, and they kind of aggregate them. But ours is all in one district. What we're presenting to people, and when we talk to people, is this is what Union Pacific thought. Here's what they based it on. This is what U.S. Department of Energy thought. U.S. Department of Energy in 1983, with using an engineering firm called Bendix, they've thought that Copper Mountain has maybe 200 million pounds. We can show people what this is based on. We're going to do more drilling to verify and maybe even go beyond what Union found at these prospects in the periphery, which they thought if you add those to what the deposits have, that deposits are sort of a category of deposits we did a ton of drilling. If we add everything together, we can build the case that this is much, much bigger than the initial resource.
And what does this work that you've done with the kind of the chemical assaying, as it were, what does that do for your thinking with regards to whether this is ISR or conventional?
Okay. We don't know yet.
Okay.
There's new technology that might help us do ISR in this rock type, this fractured granite, fractured basement. Our project area transitions to sandstone in the southern half, which is very likely to be ISR amenable as we delineate mineralization there. But this is not that related to the ISR question itself. No, you asked, I didn't really get to your question of what do these 1,500 samples mean for what we're going to do in terms of spending money, et cetera. We should get the results back before we make our plan as to what we do next. So what are we going to do to advance the project? It will partly depend, and to a great deal depend on the results from these the chemical assays of these 1,500 samples, because it could change the grade shells that we have the subsurface, and then the plan for what we drill next will be different.
Well, this is I think obviously with this kind of chemical assaying, this is I'm going to say the cheapest drilling. That's me doing bunny fingers. That you could do in terms of adding pounds. How do you then go about, I guess, reanalyzing the Union Pacific data that you've gone about acquiring and accumulating to validate it? It's like how do you do the on paper twinning of that data?
So out of the 2,000 boreholes, we have good data on several hundred of them, and then we have useful data, but not as good as we'd like on a lot more. And then there's some of the holes where we don't have the data at all. We just know the location, and then we have a bit of understanding what they found there, but we don't have, for example, where the drill was pointed and at what depth. For those ones, we don't know which way the drill was pointed and at what depth they found what mineralization. But we have some very interesting and useful information regarding some of the prospects. We know where they got great intercepts. I think people can expect that we're going to go back there sooner or later to those spots, twin those holes, if you want to call it twinning, certainly drill very close to them, verify that. And then now that we think this disequilibrium advantage applies across the project area, not supposed to say that it does because we don't know for sure yet, et cetera, but it likely does. We're going to be able to verify those very nice historical intercepts with fresh drilling, and they maybe go beyond those results. And then we'll be able, I think people will have some confidence that, for example, this prospect that Union thought has estimated has either several 100,000 or several million or 10 million pounds of uranium, that it really reasonable chance that it really does have that. Will be some way to establishing that, not quite up at 43,101 level of assurance, but we're going to head that direction.
Is there any historical data with regards to the metallurgical complexity here? Because you're saying, well, look, we're finding more down there than we previously thought, which is good news. You're going to need to very quickly show people that you can extract all of that upside, well, all of it, including the upside. So where are you with that?
We have not done that ourselves. That is a priority for our team. Our confidence is fairly high. However, Union Pacific did a lot of that work. I don't know how to put this, but the joke at Copper Mountain was that you could put the material on the ground, and if you peed on it, it would separate.
Right. Okay.
That was what it's very easy to separate according to they had a funny thing they said, but I won't say, it's a little bit crude, but apparently it's extremely easy to separate. They were getting recoveries 90 to 95% using leach. And so
at the kind of obviously they were probing and finding a certain percentage, like 1,000 ppm, and then you're saying, well, actually with the chemical assays we're seeing potentially another 6%. So
grades are higher. Yeah.
1,600 or so. It's higher. Were they able to differentiate between what they were seeing with the probe and the metallurgy, obviously being significantly higher?
Okay, well, what I do know is that they did column leach testing, extensive column leach testing of the material, and that they were getting recoveries in the 90 to 95% range. How that
I
connects
guess
to
one.
assays, I don't.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to work out here is like, do you need to kind of get after this with a new set of network? Because if they were probing and thinking, well, there's 1,000 ppm in here, I get 95% of that. That's really good news. That gives you one number. If it turned out to be, I'm getting 150 percent recovery rates, that they should have gone, oh, what's happening here? There's more uranium than we thought. So, do you know what I mean? I'm trying to
I do.
work out.
I don't know the answer to that. I assume that they had a good understanding of the uranium content of the material that they were putting into the columns for their leach testing, um,
Mm.
as opposed to generally in the the probing across the project
Okay.
area. But
I guess
we
what
don't have. Yeah.
okay, what I'm saying, I guess what I'm asking is, how it's urgent. This metallurgical testing process is really urgent to you to get your own up to date version of what's there, and more importantly, what can be recovered.
Yep. Yep. That's
Yeah,
true. Yeah. We do have again. So we have some reports from the 1970s on their work, or at least summary reports. But I'll circle back to you on that with more information
yeah,
from our
yeah.
geologists. Yeah.
It- yeah, yeah. Okay, let's do that. Like you said, they kind of knew there's probably more in there, and they were being conservative. So suggest they knew what they were doing, but maybe the technology has evolved in the last 60 years.
Yeah, that could be right. Everybody would love to have this PFN probe that nobody can really get their hands on except for a few people. This is the
Mm,
prompt fission neutron, which actually probe, and it only picks up the uranium neutron emission,
mm,
um, which is great technology. But sorry, this is a bit of an aside, but we're all reliant on the other probes that sort of pick up the neutron emission from not just uranium but the daughter products too. So we're stuck with
yeah,
this equivalent number. Yeah, that's an aside.
yeah. I wonder if urine's cheaper than acid.
Sorry to, I was hesitating to say that, but every all these historic documents and talking to the
Yeah.
folks that used to work there, they all have the same running joke about Copper Mountain, that it's so easy to separate the uranium, to leach the uranium. All you have to do is that. So
Is that no?
yeah,
It's amusing, but it's indicative of potentially the ease at which
I
this
hope
this
so.
could work. We shall see. We shall see if the
We
old
shall
boys
see.
are right.
They did have a plan to leach it. I mean, they were going to build leach pads and dump the material on there and leach it and get good recoveries. They thought so.
Right next to the mobile toilets. Right, we should talk about New Mexico, because obviously that was exciting last time we spoke to you, and I think it's getting a lot of that's not to say that obviously Wyoming is not the top of people's minds, but New Mexico seems to be in fashion at the moment as well. So how are things
Yeah,
over at Red Basin?
it is in fashion. We acquired this project, the initial acreage from First American Uranium. We thought we got a spectacular deal, but we didn't know which way New Mexico would go exactly. We knew they were resolving in the north. By the way, we're far away from the Navajo that are in the north. We understood things were getting resolved with the Navajo, who were against uranium for a while. People, your viewers may know that New Mexico's historically produced 40% of 40% of historical uranium production in the United States produced in New Mexico, and it is up and coming. You have Premier American and other companies have up and coming projects there. It's ramping up, and we are seeing a lot of investment into New Mexico, and not just from the regular uranium ecosystem, but tech companies, private equity, interesting investors coming into New Mexico. And the New Mexico government, I think, is focused on the uranium sector. Really interesting. Okay, our project area, just to recap, in New Mexico, it's called Red Basin. We have so the U.S. Geological Survey believes that the entire basin has up to 45 million pounds of uranium. It's roll front sandstone. We have the acreage that contains about 800 out of the historic 1,050 boreholes that were drilled. Those are pretty rough numbers, but pretty close to that in that basin. So our thesis is acquire the areas that have been drilled, where the not just one hole, but clusters of drilling. This is drilled by Gulf Oil and some other big companies back decades ago. We have Very nice acreage. A lot of the mineralization is near surface. It's roll front sandstone, and the grades are quite high, 0.17% to 0.31%, and very nice with a vanadium grade of 1.64% up to 1.64%. That's very nice. And we have historical resource, 500,000 pounds of indicated. That's historical. And 1.5 to 6.5 million pounds of inferred, also historical, not boarded through 101 at the moment. Very nice. We did very well in acquiring it. I think we're going to get a good return on it. It's an exciting project.
Yes, it's nice numbers, and you know, I get a good kind of starter project. But what is the short-term work program that you're going to employ there?
Only one thing, geophysics. So we'll be doing some geophysics soon. We have to do it before the end of the year, and that completes our 100% acquisition of the project. And then we'll see what that reveals. We'll go on from there.
Okay, so in terms of that ratio between Red Basin and Copper Mountain, it seems skewed towards Copper Mountain.
90 to 10%.
Yeah.
The value is in Red Basin in itself.
Yeah.
And then, it should get interesting in New Mexico and for us at Red Basin, I think.
And is this typically, is New Mexico typically an ISR district? Yeah.
It is, as far as I understand. The other projects that I'm familiar with are generally ISR.
Right.
There are questions, you have to understand where you are relative to the water table and such. So there could be a combination. For example, at our project could be a combination of ISR and maybe some conventional mining, but we'll have to see.
Right. Okay.
But hopefully quite a bit of ISR.
Okay. Some of the other New Mexico companies have spoken of project owners that I've spoken to said obviously they referenced as you get some friction in the north. So they are spending a lot of time and making a lot of effort in terms of working with local partners, strategic partners, First Nations, etc. Have you started that process?
We have to a limited extent. We're close with the U.S. Forest Service. We've been interacting with them a lot. We're on Forest Service land. We are not, Indian land does not overlap with, or claims does not overlap with us. There is a tribe that is some distance away, 15 miles away or something. They have some areas, and we'll be interacting with them. But everybody is understood to be pretty friendly with regard to uranium in our area.
The thing I've noticed with some of the junior explorers in this space is we've seen a lot of M&A. Seen some big stuff, but a lot of small stuff too. And the small stuff falls into two categories. One that it makes genuine sense, and the other is pure survival because they don't have much going on for them at the moment, right? And it's kind of split pretty equally at the moment. You've obviously at the beginning of something, you've got a previous discovery that you can look to, and previous indicative pounds that you can look to. But what do you think separates you from some of these other kind of smaller junior explorer categories? And will you need M&A to kind of stay relevant?
We think we're value. Our real value is a big multiple of where we're at. We'd like the world to realize and our real value, and for us to get there. I'm not alone as a CEO of this company. Everybody feels that way about their own company, or a lot of people do, but we really do. What we think is going to happen is we're going to get valued correctly sooner or later here. We're in the U.S. We're in the best jurisdictions in the U.S. And then M&A will come. I don't know how this sounds, but exactly how we feel as a management team. We want to make sure that we get to our proper value before takeover bids and offers start to come, which then management's going to have to decide whether to put to shareholders. And of course, when there's premiums high enough, we have no choice. So all this is coming. I take your point. There's survival. There's all these things, but the value is there for us. The pounds are there in the ground. So I think we're going to be fine in terms of raising money and executing our plan. We don't need to buy or be bought in order to survive. What we're focused on is sort of adding value, making sure the world understands what we've got. Hopefully that leads to a higher share price, and then if there's M&A later, the premium will be on a much higher share price if we're an acquisition.
I can see you dancing around the exchange rules very
Yeah, I don't know
deftly.
what are you
Well
supposed to
done,
do with
sir.
it. Yeah, thanks. You
Well
know how, yeah, we
done.
were talking about this earlier. It's what you can say and what you can't and all these things.
I
But
know, I know.
um,
You sound excited though, so we will
yeah,
let
really
you
pumped up.
demonstrate that. We'll let you demonstrate that by exchange rules and come back to us once you've done a bit more of this assaying because that sounds like a good one. But
It's very
there's something
exciting.
you. It is very exciting. And you're in the right jurisdictions as well. You started with something quite meaningful with with all that old data. But you mentioned something earlier. You talk about some of the tech companies positioning themselves in state. They are looking not just long and hard. They've kind of already done their investment thesis. They are now working out the who, the where, and the how much. That's what I'm hearing.
I'm that's what I'm seeing out there too. I think we had a board member, Ian Archibald. He had to resign last September, roughly, and he joined the Canada Pension Plan as one of the heads of their tech fund management. We regret him having to leave, but he, of course, couldn't be on the board of anything as one of the head guys at Canada Pension Plan. But he is plugged into the tech world. He anticipated all this. He said that they're coming. The tech companies, data, AI, Microsoft, Google, etc., plus everybody connected with them in the ecosystem. They will be coming for, they're going to have to move down and they're going to have to go after the uranium itself that's in the ground. Um, and I think you're going to see some of these folks putting their toe in the water a little bit, learning. There's going to be a bit of that. They're very smart. They go right after the leading experts in the space to understand how it works and which projects to go for. I think they're going to, of course, they're resourced. They've got unlimited money in this, and the uranium space is really cheap relative to everything else that they've got to spend money on. It's and uranium in the ground is really cheap relative to everything else they're going to have to spend money on. And so I see them coming in. I think they're going to get involved, and that's going to be really great because, as you know, uranium has been very niche, and it's for a long time, and there's a bit of outside money coming in, but this will be a real big boost. They are also very aware, and of course they're very connected to the current administration in the U.S. They know what's going on before anybody. I think they may even be able to read the mind of President Trump and the minds of his the people around him, and that is they can see what's coming and see it look around corners. And I think there's going to be lots of excitement and the tech companies coming in. I think you're going to see Microsoft and Google and OpenAI and et cetera, Grok or whatever it's called, et cetera. They'll be coming in.
Yeah, but I think it's they're definitely coming in downstream. But I'm intrigued that they're having conversations with companies like yourself, trying further upstream and trying to understand who's got what, and then obviously how they interpret that because they don't know the space, and it's just a thesis. But they don't need to. Every bet does not need to win. That's the sector they've come from. If 1 in 20 of these things comes off, they think they've had a good day at the office, right? That's it'd be useful. It'd be interesting to see if they have the same mentality in the mining space.
It'll be very interesting. Yeah, it's great and how refreshing for us too, right? This sort of really optimistic shoot for the what are they saying East Africa? It's aim for the moon, end up in the tree. But if you aim for the tree, end up on the ground or something like that. They're aiming for
I'll take that.
they're
I'll take
aiming
that.
for the stars, and it's great to feel that energy from them. And they're going to come in and probably really shake things up in our space, or there's a good chance they will anyway. Let's see. Yeah, I
Let's
can
hope
feel
so.
it.
Let's see. Let's see. Okay, Tom, as ever, great to see you. Nice to see things
You
moving
too.
along on the ground. Again, congrats on the race. Okay.
Thank you. Great to see you.